The mind is everything, what you think you become. Have you ever stopped to wonder whether the life you are living today is truly yours, or if it is simply the product of chance, outside influences, and unexamined habits? Many of us move through our days reacting to circumstances, letting emotions and impulses dictate our path, never realizing that our reality begins and ends in the mind. The Stoics understood this with absolute clarity. Your external world is nothing more than a reflection of your internal state. If your thoughts are scattered and undisciplined, your life will mirror that chaos. But if your thoughts are focused, purposeful, and rooted in virtue, they become the foundation upon which a life of strength and fulfillment can be built. Every breakthrough and every failure you have ever experienced began first as a thought, a seed planted in the fertile soil of your mind. What you choose to plant, nurture, and protect determines the harvest you will one day reap. This is not abstract philosophy. It is the essence of human experience. When I was younger, I carried the belief that I was not good enough. That single thought quietly shaped my decisions for years, creating invisible walls that kept me from opportunities that could have changed my life. Only when I replaced that thought with "I can learn and improve" did those walls begin to crumble. In their place appeared a path forward, one I had never seen because I was too busy telling myself a story of limitation. The Stoics compared the mind to a garden. Seeds of gratitude, courage, and hope grow into a thriving, abundant landscape when cared for with discipline and intention. Seeds of fear, resentment, and self-doubt left unattended overrun the soil with weeds. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Ask yourself, what color are you painting your life with today? Are you cultivating a mindset that strengthens you, or one that silently drains your potential? The feedback loop between thoughts, beliefs, and actions is both the greatest challenge and the greatest gift we possess. The challenge is that negative thoughts, if left unchecked, create beliefs that limit us, leading to actions or inactions that confirm those beliefs. The gift is that this loop can be rewritten at any moment. Doubt and fear will always make themselves known, but they are not immovable walls. They are signals calling us to examine and reframe our perspective. One of the simplest ways to begin this reframing is through intentional language. Every time you think "I cannot replace it" with "I will try." Every time you feel "I am not ready," tell yourself "I am preparing." These are not empty affirmations. They are small adjustments to the blueprint of your mind. Over time, they alter the architecture of your actions, creating a structure strong enough to support the life you truly desire. In my own life, visualization has been a powerful ally. I picture the goal as if it has already been achieved, filling in the details, the colors, the sounds, the emotions, until it feels tangible. This vision directs my thoughts like a compass, and my actions follow naturally. The Stoics may not have used the term visualization, but they understood the power of mental rehearsal. They lived each day with an image of the person they wanted to be and measured every choice against that image. Think of your life as a house. The foundation is your mindset. The walls are your beliefs, and the roof is the culmination of your daily actions. A weak foundation cannot support the weight of your aspirations. But with a foundation built on discipline, clarity, and virtue, your house can withstand the storms of fortune and misfortune alike. Before the day ends, take a quiet moment to reflect on the reality your mind is constructing. What beliefs are you reinforcing consciously or unconsciously? And do those beliefs serve the life you wish to live? This is not about judging yourself harshly. It is about becoming the architect of your own destiny. Start with one positive, empowering thought today and nurture it daily. With time, you will watch it grow into a life rich in purpose, peace, and strength. The world will never run out of noise. It will never stop offering you reasons to be anxious, angry, or afraid. The Stoics knew this better than anyone, for their lives were filled with wars, plagues, betrayals, and uncertainty. Yet their writings echo with a calm that feels almost otherworldly. This calm was not given to them. It was built thought by thought, choice by choice. Marcus Aurelius sat at the center of an empire in crisis and wrote words that could have been whispered by a monk in solitude. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. To maintain strength of mind in a chaotic world, the Stoics practiced a discipline of mental boundaries. They treated their attention like a precious resource, refusing to spend it on things they could not control. This was not apathy, it was strategy. By protecting their inner world from the constant pull of the external, they preserved the energy needed to act where it truly mattered. Consider how easily your mood can be stolen by a single headline, a careless comment, or the behavior of a stranger. These moments, if left unchecked, can pull you into a spiral of reaction. The Stoics broke this chain by asking a simple question. Is this within my control? If the answer was no, they let it go, not because it was unimportant in the grand scheme of the world, but because it was unchangeable in the scope of their own life. This does not mean the Stoics ignored reality. They faced reality more directly than most because their energy was not diluted by futile outrage. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable. When you surrender the illusion of control over external events, you reclaim the only thing that was ever truly yours, your ability to choose your response. Another way the Stoics cultivated inner strength was through mental rehearsal of challenges. They would deliberately imagine losing what they valued, facing hardship, or enduring insult. This was not to make themselves pessimistic, but to immunize their minds against shock. If you have already faced the possibility in your thoughts, you are less shaken when it arrives in reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." Wrestling requires readiness, resilience, and the ability to adapt in the moment. The modern world offers endless distractions that chip away at your inner stillness. Technology places every crisis on your doorstep in real time. The Stoic answer is not to retreat permanently from the world, but to create pockets of solitude and reflection within it. Even a few minutes of stillness, no phone, no noise, just you and your thoughts, can restore the mind to clarity. This is where you decide what deserves your attention and what does not. Maintaining calm in chaos also requires humility. The Stoics accepted that they were only one part of a vast and complex universe. This perspective reduces the weight of personal frustration. When you realize you are not the center of every story, you can step back from the emotional heat of the moment and act with greater wisdom. Seneca compared this to being an actor in a play you did not write. You cannot choose the script, but you can choose how you perform your role. The Stoics also leaned on virtues as anchors in turbulent times. Courage kept them steady in fear. Justice guided them when tempted by selfishness. Temperance reminded them to resist excess in pleasure or pain. Wisdom allowed them to see beyond the immediate and act for the long term. These virtues acted as a compass, ensuring that even when the winds of life shifted wildly, their direction remained true. When the mind is grounded in such principles, it becomes less like a fragile boat tossed by waves, and more like a lighthouse unmoved, providing steady light regardless of the storm. This is the Stoic ideal, to be a source of stability, not only for yourself, but for those around you. Personal reflection. If you have listened this far, it tells me you are seeking more than quick fixes. You are looking for a foundation that will hold no matter what life throws at you. I have walked through seasons of my life where the noise was deafening, where every day seemed to demand a reaction. The turning point came when I learned to pause, to ask, is this mine to carry? Most of the time, the answer was no. That one question gave me back hours of peace and years of energy. I invite you to try it today. The next time the world demands your outrage or your fear, stop and ask yourself, is this within my control? Share your answer in the comments. You may be surprised how much lighter your load becomes when you stop carrying what was never yours. Every person encounters challenges. Some see them as walls, others as doorways. The Stoics trained themselves to see every obstacle as an opportunity, every hardship as a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This was not poetic optimism, it was a deliberate mental framework that turned resistance into progress. When a challenge appears, the common instinct is to resist it, to wish it away. The Stoics did the opposite. They leaned in, asking themselves, how can this serve me? By reframing difficulty as a forge for character, they transformed events that might have crushed another person into experiences that strengthened their resolve. Imagine a blacksmith's workshop. A piece of raw iron is worthless until it has been hammered, heated, and shaped by fire. The process is uncomfortable for the metal, but necessary for it to become a sword. The Stoics believed our minds are much the same. Without the heat of challenge, we remain soft, untested, and unable to fulfill our potential. This mindset does not come naturally. It must be trained through repeated practice. The Stoics began by accepting that pain, loss, and difficulty are inevitable parts of life. By removing the element of surprise, they reduced the suffering that comes from asking, "Why me?" Instead, they asked, "Why not me?" This question reframes hardship as a natural part of existence, something to meet with courage rather than complaint. One practical Stoic technique for turning challenges into opportunities is the three-step reflection. First, acknowledge the obstacle without judgment. Second, identify what is within your control in this situation. Third, decide on the smallest next action that aligns with your values. This approach keeps you moving forward when others might freeze. Seneca often reminded his students that fortune tests those it wishes to shape. If life has sent you difficulty, it is not a punishment, it is an invitation to grow. This perspective removes the bitterness that can poison the mind in times of struggle. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you become an active participant in your own transformation. Modern psychology mirrors this ancient wisdom in the concept of post-traumatic growth, the phenomenon where individuals emerge from hardship with greater strength, deeper relationships, and a clearer sense of purpose. The Stoics were practicing this long before it had a name. By interpreting trials through the lens of growth, they ensured that pain was never wasted. Another key aspect of the Stoic approach is detachment from the outcome. They believe that you should focus on the effort, not the guarantee of success. When failure is seen not as a final verdict, but as valuable feedback, the fear of trying diminishes. Every attempt, successful or not, becomes part of the training. This is why the Stoics could face repeated setbacks without losing their direction. They saw life as a long campaign where each battle won or lost taught them something essential for the wars to come. Even defeat was a form of progress if it revealed a weakness to strengthen. Turning challenges into opportunities also requires gratitude, which may seem counterintuitive. But gratitude shifts the focus from what you have lost to what you have gained through the experience. Marcus Aurelius often thanked life for the very trials that others might curse, because he saw in them the chance to practice patience, courage, or wisdom. When you adopt this perspective, the world changes. The job you lost becomes the doorway to a better path. The betrayal you suffered becomes the lesson that sharpens your discernment. The failure you endured becomes the training ground for a stronger comeback. Nothing is wasted. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it means you have faced obstacles that left a mark. I have faced my own, some I thought would break me, but every one of them carried a gift, though I could only see it later. The next time you encounter a challenge, I invite you to pause before reacting. Ask, what is the gift hidden here? Share your answer in the comments. You may find that naming the opportunity in the middle of the struggle is the first step toward claiming it. Most people believe their thoughts are automatic, uncontrollable waves that rise and fall without their consent. But the Stoics rejected this belief entirely. They saw thoughts not as uncontrollable forces, but as choices, seeds you can accept or reject before they take root. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in it." This was not metaphor, it was instruction. If you dwell on fear, you grow timid. If you dwell on anger, you grow bitter. If you dwell on gratitude and purpose, you grow strong. The mind is not a passive container, it is a gate. Each day, countless thoughts arrive, knocking for entry. The Stoics stood at that gate with vigilance, admitting only those that served their higher purpose. This mental discipline required awareness, the ability to notice a thought the moment it appeared, before it could spiral into an emotion or an action. Most people let thoughts slip past unnoticed, only realizing their influence after they have already reacted. The Stoics practiced catching them early, when they were still small and weak. This is why Epictetus advised his students to test each impression before accepting it. When a thought arises, "This is unfair, I cannot do this. They have insulted me," pause and ask, "Is this true? Is it useful? Does it lead me toward virtue or away from it?" By interrogating thoughts in this way, the Stoics filtered their mental diet, feeding only what would make them stronger. The connection between thought and emotion was central to Stoic practice. They understood that emotions do not appear from nowhere, they are born from judgments. If you judge a situation as a threat, you feel fear. If you judge it as an insult, you feel anger. By changing the judgment, you change the emotion. This is not suppression, it is transformation. Instead of trying to wrestle with the emotion after it has taken hold, the Stoics addressed it at the source, the thought that created it. In modern terms, this is similar to cognitive reframing in psychology, the practice of viewing situations from a perspective that reduces negative emotion and opens the door to constructive action. The Stoics used this long before it had a name. For example, if someone spoke harshly to them, instead of thinking they have disrespected me, they might think they are struggling within themselves, and their words reflect that struggle. This shift diffuses anger and replaces it with understanding. Choosing thoughts is also about choosing focus. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to direct his mind toward what is good, just, and within his control. When you focus on what you can influence, you empower yourself. When you dwell on what you cannot, you hand over your peace to chance. This is why the Stoics were so strict about mental boundaries. They knew that focus is the fuel of action, and action shapes life. This does not mean denying negative realities. The Stoics faced harsh truths without flinching, but they refused to let these truths poison their inner world. Seneca observed that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By refusing to indulge in unnecessary worry or resentment, they freed themselves to act effectively in the present. A practical way to apply this is the thought substitution method. When you catch yourself in a negative thought pattern, replace it with a constructive one that still acknowledges reality. If you think this is too difficult, you can replace it with, "This is a chance to grow stronger." If you think "I am failing," you can replace it with, "I am learning what does not work." Over time, these substitutions become natural, and your mind begins to default to empowering interpretations. The Stoics also recognized the role of repetition. Just as physical training strengthens the body through repeated action, mental training strengthens the mind through repeated thought selection. Every time you choose a thought that serves you over one that sabotages you, you reinforce a neural pathway that makes the next choice easier. This is how discipline turns into instinct. Ultimately, choosing your thoughts is about taking responsibility for the world you live in, because your mind is that world. If you do not choose your thoughts, someone else will. The media will choose them for you. Strangers will choose them for you. Old habits will choose them for you. But when you stand at the gate of your mind, deciding deliberately which thoughts may enter you, reclaim authorship of your life. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it means you care deeply about the quality of your inner life. I have lived through seasons where my thoughts were not my own, where I let worry, anger, and fear dictate my days. It was only when I began to stand guard over my mind that I realized how much power I had been giving away. I invite you to try this today. For just 1 hour, notice every thought that enters your mind. Decide which ones you will feed and which ones you will release. Then share your experience in the comments. You may discover that the true battle for your life is fought and won inside your mind. The Stoics were masters of mental preparation. They understood that the events of life are unpredictable, but the mind can be trained to meet them with clarity and strength. One of their most powerful tools was visualization, not the modern vision boards filled with luxury cars and mansions, but a deliberate, disciplined imagining of reality as it might unfold both in hope and in hardship. This was not daydreaming, it was rehearsal. Marcus Aurelius often practiced what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Each morning he reminded himself that he would meet with meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly people. This was not pessimism, it was armor. By picturing these encounters in advance, he stripped them of their power to shock him. If he was ready for them, they could not throw him off balance. Epictetus taught a similar practice. When you embrace your child, silently remind yourself that this is a mortal being who will one day die. Such thoughts may sound cold, but their purpose was not to drain life of joy, it was to deepen it. When you accept the fragility of all you love, you stop taking it for granted. You cherish each moment more fully because you understand it cannot last forever. Visualization for the Stoics was always grounded in reality. They did not imagine perfect scenarios to escape the discomfort of the present. Instead, they imagined both the best and the worst possibilities, so they could prepare their minds to act wisely in either case. In this way, they were never entirely caught off guard, and they could meet life with a calm born of readiness. Modern psychology has proven the effectiveness of such mental rehearsal. Athletes use visualization to improve performance, picturing themselves executing movements flawlessly before they step onto the field. The Stoics used it to prepare for life's moral and emotional tests. By rehearsing how they would respond to insults, losses, or temptations, they built mental reflexes that kept them aligned with their values under pressure. Another form of Stoic visualization was positive projection, imagining the person you wanted to become and letting that image guide your actions. Seneca encouraged his readers to keep examples of great men in their minds, to ask themselves in difficult moments, what would they do? This practice provided a living standard against which to measure one's own choices. I have found this method to be especially powerful when combined with written reflection. Each morning I picture the version of myself I want to be: disciplined, calm, purposeful, and I write down the actions that version of me would take today. This gives the day direction before it even begins. It is a way of deciding who will live this day, the distracted, reactive version of me or the focused, deliberate one. Preparation of the mind is not only about imagining scenarios, it is also about removing illusions. The Stoics stripped away wishful thinking, seeing things as they are rather than as they hoped they would be. This clarity allowed them to prepare for life as it is, not as a fantasy. They knew that a sailor who sets out expecting only calm seas is doomed to fail. The wise sailor studies storms as carefully as he studies the wind. By practicing both positive and negative visualization, the Stoics achieved balance. They nurtured hope without becoming dependent on it. They accepted difficulty without becoming bitter. And because they had already walked through the possibilities in their minds, they could act decisively when those moments arrived in reality. This is the essence of Stoic preparation, to live as if you have already seen this moment before, to act not out of surprise or fear, but out of a calm certainty that you are ready. When you make preparation a daily ritual, life's unpredictability loses much of its sting. You stop being at the mercy of events and begin to meet them as an equal participant in the unfolding story. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it tells me you want to live intentionally, not reactively. I have learned that the best way to face the unknown is to make it less unknown. Every evening I spend a few minutes imagining the challenges tomorrow might bring and how I will meet them. Sometimes they never happen, but when they do, I am ready. Try it tonight. Visualize both a small frustration and a big opportunity you might face tomorrow. Decide now how you will respond. Then share your experience in the comments. You may find that the day feels lighter when you have already walked through it in your mind. The mind is like a fortress, but even the strongest walls can be breached if the gates are left open. The Stoics understood that the greatest threats to inner peace often do not come from the natural storms of life, but from the constant flow of negativity that seeps in from other people and the environment around us. If left unchecked, this negativity can poison the well of thought, changing how we see ourselves and the world. Marcus Aurelius began his days by reminding himself that he would encounter meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly people. He did not say this to justify resentment, but to prepare himself not to be surprised or thrown off balance. He knew that if he expected people to act perfectly, he would constantly be disappointed. By anticipating human flaws, he could meet them with patience instead of anger. The Stoics treated the mind as something worth defending with vigilance. They believed that every interaction was an exchange. You take in part of the other person's energy, and they take in part of yours. For this reason, they were selective about the company they kept. Seneca warned that even the strongest mind can be influenced by the wrong crowd, just as healthy lungs can be damaged by breathing toxic air for too long. Protecting the mind from negativity does not mean isolating yourself from the world. The Stoics lived among people of all kinds, often in positions of great responsibility, but they practiced what might be called emotional hygiene. Just as you wash your hands after touching something dirty, they cleansed the mind after exposure to toxic attitudes. This could be done through writing, meditation, or simply spending time with uplifting voices, both living companions and the writings of wise men. One key Stoic practice was refusing to take on emotions that did not belong to them. If someone was angry, they recognized that this anger was the other person's burden, not theirs to carry. If someone was bitter or cynical, they acknowledged it without absorbing it. This mental boundary allowed them to stay compassionate without becoming contaminated. In modern life, negativity often reaches us not only through direct contact, but through constant digital exposure. News feeds, social media, and online arguments can fill our mental space with outrage and despair. The Stoic solution would be the same today as it was 2,000 years ago. Guard your inputs. Choose what you allow into your mind as carefully as you choose what you eat. A steady diet of poison will harm you even if you tell yourself you are only observing it. Epictetus reminded his students that the opinions of others are not facts, and that the behavior of others is outside your control. This truth is liberating if you let it be. You are not required to agree with, internalize, or even engage with every negative statement that reaches your ears. You can let it pass through you like wind through an open window. The Stoics also emphasize the importance of reinforcing the positive. Just as soldiers train more effectively in the company of other disciplined soldiers, the mind grows stronger when surrounded by those who live by virtue. Seek out voices that challenge you to rise higher, not ones that drag you down. Read the works of those whose minds you admire. Speak with people whose presence leaves you clearer, not more confused. Another aspect of protection is self-awareness. The Stoics paid attention to the early signs of mental intrusion, the subtle irritations, the creeping doubts, the urge to react impulsively. By catching these signals early, they could address them before they took root. You might do this by pausing when you notice your mood shift after a conversation or media exposure, asking yourself, is this mine or did I pick it up from someone else? Ultimately, protecting the mind is about preserving your capacity to think and act in alignment with your values. Negativity can distract, distort, and exhaust you, leaving less energy for what truly matters. By defending your inner space, you keep your strength for the battles that deserve it. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it tells me you understand that your mental environment is just as important as your physical one. I have seen in my own life how easily other people's moods can hijack my day until I began to guard the gates of my mind. I invite you to try this for a week. Limit one source of negativity in your life, whether it is a certain online feed, a toxic conversation, or even a habit of self-criticism. Notice how much lighter and clearer you feel. Then share your experience in the comments. You might inspire someone else to start building their own mental fortress. The Stoics knew that any worthy goal demands more than bursts of effort. It demands sustained willpower over time, a kind of quiet endurance that outlasts frustration, boredom, and doubt. Most people set out on a new path with excitement, but when results do not arrive as quickly as they hoped, their motivation begins to fade. The Stoics prepared for this by building their foundation not on feelings but on discipline. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that progress is made step by step. He did not expect transformation overnight, and he warned against discouragement when progress seemed invisible. The Stoics measured success not by how quickly they reached the summit, but by how faithfully they took the next step. This mindset frees you from the tyranny of impatience. Instead of asking, how far am I from my goal? You ask, have I taken the best step I can today? Epictetus often compared life to athletic training. An athlete does not expect to master his craft in a single session. He repeats drills, strengthens muscles, and hones techniques day after day. The same is true of the mind. The Stoics practiced patience as a form of strength. They understood that a goal worth having is a goal worth working for, no matter how long it takes. One of the greatest threats to long-term willpower is distraction. The Stoics countered this by keeping their focus anchored in their highest values. Seneca wrote that those who are everywhere are nowhere. If you scatter your attention across too many pursuits, you will not progress deeply in any. The Stoics chose fewer goals but pursued them with complete commitment. This selective focus allowed them to endure the inevitable challenges without losing sight of the destination. Another Stoic tool for sustaining willpower was detachment from immediate results. They placed their energy in the process, not the outcome. If you are planting a tree, you do not dig it up every day to check its roots. You water it, protect it, and trust that growth is happening beneath the surface. The Stoics saw their efforts the same way. By focusing on the daily actions within their control, they freed themselves from the anxiety of constant measurement. Of course, even the Stoics faced days when the weight of the journey felt heavy. In these moments, they turned to reflection and renewal. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal, writing not to impress others, but to remind himself of why he began. This practice reconnected him to his purpose when fatigue threatened to cloud it. You can do the same. Keep your why close and revisit it often. The Stoics also found strength in small victories. Large goals can feel distant and abstract, but breaking them into smaller milestones provides steady motivation. Each completed milestone is proof that progress is real, even if the ultimate prize is still far off. Epictetus would say, "First win the little battles, the great ones will follow." Patience was not passive for the Stoics. It was active endurance, a willingness to keep moving without needing constant reward. This is a rare skill in a world that craves instant results. but it is the skill that separates those who quit from those who prevail. When you train yourself to value the act of showing up more than the applause that may come later, you become unstoppable. They also cultivated resilience against setbacks by reframing them as part of the path. A failed attempt was not a reason to abandon the goal. It was data to be used for the next attempt. Seneca reminded his students that the wind will not always blow in your favor, but the skilled sailor adjusts his sails instead of cursing the storm. This adaptability kept them committed even when the route to the goal changed. In modern life, sustaining willpower often requires protecting your energy from unnecessary drains. The Stoics would advise reducing mental clutter, simplifying your commitments, and building habits that support your focus. When your daily environment aligns with your long-term goals, perseverance becomes less of a battle and more of a natural flow. In the end, the Stoic approach to willpower was simple. Commit fully, act daily, endure patiently. Do not let the absence of immediate results fool you into thinking progress is not happening. Like a stone sculptor, you may see no change for weeks until suddenly the form begins to emerge from the block. The work was shaping it all along, you just could not see it yet. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it means you understand that real change is a long game. I have chased quick wins before only to lose them just as quickly. The goals that have lasted were the ones I pursued slowly, deliberately, refusing to quit when progress was invisible. I invite you to choose one long-term goal and commit to it for the next 90 days without obsessing over the end result. Focus only on the actions you can take today. Then share in the comments how it feels to let go of the rush and trust the process. You may discover that patience is not just a virtue, it is a superpower. The Stoics believed that true strength was not found in overpowering others, but in mastering oneself. To them, self-control in the face of provocation was not a weakness. It was the highest form of courage. Anyone can lash out when insulted, lose composure under stress, or act recklessly when angry. But to remain calm, to act deliberately instead of reacting impulsively, requires a level of inner discipline that few achieve. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This statement is deceptively simple, but it carries the key to emotional mastery. The world will always provide opportunities for you to lose your temper. People will provoke you, situations will frustrate you, and setbacks will tempt you into despair. But the Stoics trained themselves to pause between stimulus and response, to insert reason where instinct once ruled. Epictetus compared the mind to a fortress under siege. The enemy, anger, fear, jealousy, cannot breach the walls unless you open the gates. And often we open those gates ourselves without realizing it by allowing a thought to spiral unchecked. The Stoics refused to hand over this control. They practiced noticing the first signs of emotional takeover, whether it was a quickening heartbeat, a tightening jaw, or a rush of defensive thoughts. By catching these early, they could choose a measured response instead of an impulsive one. One powerful Stoic technique for emotional control is reframing. Instead of seeing insults as attacks, they saw them as reflections of the other person's state of mind. An insult says more about the speaker than the target. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that when someone acts unjustly, it is because they believe in their own mind that they are acting rightly. This understanding turns anger into curiosity, and curiosity leaves no room for rage. The Stoics also practiced depersonalization of events. If a storm delays your journey, it is not against you. It simply is. If a person criticizes you unfairly, the words are not an injury unless you decide to receive them as one. Seneca likened this to a traveler encountering a rough road. You do not curse the road for existing. You adjust your steps and continue. Modern neuroscience supports this approach. Emotions like anger and fear activate the amygdala, the brain's threat center, which can override rational thought. but conscious reappraisal, choosing to reinterpret a situation, engages the prefrontal cortex, restoring reason and control. The Stoics were practicing this long before science explained why it worked. They also understood the role of preparation. Just as soldiers train for battle before stepping onto the field, the Stoics prepared for emotional tests before they occurred. By rehearsing potential provocations in their minds and deciding in advance how they would respond, they made composure a habit rather than a struggle. It is important to note that emotional control for the Stoics was not suppression. They did not advocate burying feelings or pretending to be unaffected. Instead, they encouraged observing emotions without being ruled by them. To feel anger, rise and still choose patience. To feel fear, press in and still act with courage. That was their goal. This self-mastery also extended to moments of joy and triumph. The Stoics cautioned against being carried away by positive emotions to the point of losing judgment. Even in celebration, they maintained balance, recognizing that fortune could change at any moment. This steadiness kept them grounded, preventing reckless decisions in moments of euphoria just as much as in moments of despair. Over time, the discipline of emotional control becomes liberating. When you are no longer at the mercy of every provocation, you reclaim vast amounts of energy and peace. You stop wasting days replaying arguments in your head or plotting revenge that only harms you. Instead, you direct your energy toward what truly matters: your growth, your work, your purpose. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it means you value mastery over your own mind more than the fleeting satisfaction of proving someone wrong or winning an argument. I have learned that emotional control is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming free. Free from the tyranny of other people's moods, free from the chains of your own impulses. I invite you to try this the next time someone provokes you. Pause. Count to 3 before speaking. Ask yourself, what response serves my highest self? Then share your experience in the comments. You may find that the power you feel in that pause is greater than any power you could gain from reacting. The Stoics valued silence not as an absence of sound, but as a presence of clarity. In a world filled with noise, both the literal noise of voices and the internal noise of restless thoughts, they saw silence as the foundation for wisdom. Without the ability to be still and listen both to the world and to oneself, true understanding cannot take root. Seneca wrote that, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." For the Stoics, listening was not a passive act, it was active observation. They listened for meaning, for intention, for the lessons hidden in what others said and in what they did not say. They understood that the rush to respond often blinds us to the truth of a situation. Observation to the Stoics was a form of training. Marcus Aurelius encouraged himself to look at things as they truly are, stripping away assumptions and judgments. When you practice this, you begin to see patterns that others miss. The motives behind actions, the consequences, unfolding from small choices, the subtle shifts in people's character. This kind of seeing requires patience and a mind that is not clouded by constant chatter. Silence also gives you space to examine your own mind. Without moments of reflection, your thoughts blend together into a stream you never question. The Stoics made time each day to review their actions, their motives, and their responses. Seneca recommended an evening ritual of self-examination, asking, "What did I do well today? What could I have done better? Where did I act according to my values, and where did I fall short?" This was not self-criticism for its own sake. It was a way of keeping the mind aligned with the life they wanted to live. In the practice of silence, the Stoics developed the ability to delay reaction. Modern life pressures us to respond instantly. Messages, news, and demands arrive every minute. But the Stoics knew that the first response is often the least wise. A moment of silence can be the difference between a decision you regret and one you stand by for years. Silence is also a form of strength in conflict. When provoked, most people rush to defend themselves, escalating the tension. The Stoics, however, often chose to say nothing, allowing their actions and integrity to speak louder than their words. They understood that the need to have the last word is often a sign of insecurity. True confidence does not require constant defense. Observation extended beyond people to the world itself. The Stoics took lessons from nature, the steady flow of a river, the resilience of a tree, in the wind, the cycles of growth and decay. These observations reminded them of the larger order of the universe and their place within it. By aligning their actions with this order, they found a sense of peace that did not depend on circumstances. In our time, practicing silence and observation can be as simple as setting aside a few minutes each day without devices, conversations, or tasks. Use this time to notice your surroundings, your thoughts, and your feelings without judgment. Over time, you will begin to see connections and truths that were invisible in the rush of constant activity. The Stoics did not value silence for silence's sake. They valued it because it created the conditions for wise action. Reflection turns experience into insight. Observation turns information into understanding. And from this understanding, they acted with a precision that spared them from unnecessary mistakes. In this way, silence and observation were not retreats from life. They were tools for engaging with it more effectively. A mind trained to watch and reflect is a mind that chooses its battles wisely, invests its energy in what matters, and avoids the traps that ensnare those who act without thinking. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it means you sense the power of stepping back before stepping forward. I have found that the most important decisions in my life were not made in moments of noise and haste, but in the quiet spaces I created for reflection. I invite you to try this tomorrow. Take 10 minutes of complete silence. No phone, no talking, no agenda. Just observe your thoughts, your surroundings, your emotions. Then share what you notice in the comments. You may find that those 10 minutes reveal more than hours of constant activity ever could. Life is a shifting landscape. Seasons change, fortunes rise and fall, relationships grow and fade. Most people try to find security in things outside themselves: money, reputation, possessions, or even the approval of others. But the Stoics knew that these anchors are temporary at best, illusions at worst. True stability, they taught, must be built within. When the foundation of your peace rests on things you cannot control, you are at the mercy of every storm. When it rests on your character and your principles, no storm can take it from you. Marcus Aurelius lived this truth during years of war plague and political unrest. As emperor, he could not avoid chaos. He had to walk directly into it every day. Yet his writings reveal a man who returned again and again to a simple practice, focusing only on what he could control: his own thoughts, actions, and decisions, and letting go of everything else. He compared this to a rock at the shore, battered by waves, but unmoved by them. This strength was not built overnight. The Stoics trained for it the way an athlete trains for endurance, through deliberate exposure to difficulty. Seneca advised practicing voluntary discomfort, sleeping on a hard bed, eating plain food, walking in the cold. These exercises were not about self-punishment. They were about proving to yourself that comfort is not a necessity and that you can endure far more than you think. Each small act of chosen discomfort was a brick in the wall of inner fortitude. They also practiced mental resilience by regularly reflecting on the impermanence of all things. This was not meant to cause despair, but to free them from attachment to what could be lost. When you accept that change is inevitable, you stop clinging desperately to the present and start meeting the future with open hands. The Stoics saw themselves as travelers, passing through a world in motion, taking only what could be carried in the mind: virtue, wisdom, and integrity. A central pillar of Stoic steadiness was the refusal to measure worth by external success or failure. Epictetus reminded his students that the only true good is virtue, and the only true evil is vice. Everything else is indifferent. It may be preferred or avoided, but it does not define you. This perspective made them immune to the whiplash of public opinion. Praise did not inflate them, and criticism did not crush them. Their compass pointed inward toward the standards they set for themselves. Modern life bombards us with reasons to feel unstable. Economic uncertainty, social comparison, and constant change create a background hum of anxiety. The Stoic answer to this is not withdrawal, but clarity. Decide what is truly yours to manage, and give it your full energy. Release the rest without bitterness. This is a radical act of self-preservation in a culture that demands we react to everything. Resilience also requires recovery. The Stoics valued moments of rest and reflection as much as action. Just as a warrior must sharpen his sword after battle, they believed the mind must be restored regularly to maintain strength. For Marcus Aurelius, this meant retreating into the citadel within a mental space of calm where he could remind himself of the principles that guided his life. For us, it might mean quiet walks, meditation, or even simply breathing deeply for a few minutes each day. A resilient mind is not unfeeling. It feels everything but is not broken by anything. When grief came, the Stoics did not deny it. They let it wash through them, knowing that resisting emotion can sometimes prolong its hold. But they also knew that life continues and that returning to one's duties is a form of healing. Seneca wrote that while tears may fall, they should not drown the soul. When you practice steadiness, you become like the roots of a tree, hidden but unshakable. The winds may bend your branches, but they cannot uproot you. This is the kind of strength that the Stoics cultivated, not loud, not dramatic, but enduring. It is the strength that allows you to keep your course when others are swept away, to be a source of calm in the storm for yourself and for those who depend on you. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it tells me you value building a life that cannot be easily shaken. I have learned that the storms will come whether you are ready or not. But if you prepare now, they will not take you with them. I invite you to choose one practice this week that strengthens your resilience. Maybe it is facing a small discomfort without complaint, or taking time each day to remind yourself of what truly matters. Then share your experience in the comments. You might find that stability is not about controlling the world, but about becoming the kind of person who can stand in any world and remain whole. The Stoics believed that life's value was not measured by comfort, ease, or the absence of hardship. It was measured by whether you lived in alignment with your highest principles regardless of circumstances. They understood that meaning is not something you stumble upon. It is something you create through choice and action, especially when life is at its most challenging. Marcus Aurelius faced endless wars on the empire's borders, political betrayal, the death of his children. Yet he returned again and again to a central truth. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To the Stoics, every difficulty was an opportunity to live their philosophy, to prove that their values were more than words. This mindset transformed even suffering into a form of service because it became a chance to embody courage, patience, and wisdom. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled by a cruel master, could have lived in bitterness. Instead, he taught that our true work in life is not to control what happens to us, but to control how we respond. He compared life to a role in a play. You do not choose your script, but you choose how well you perform your part. Whether your role is long or short, glamorous or humble, you can bring dignity to it by playing it with excellence. Seneca took this further, reminding his readers that life is not short. It is often wasted. People spend their days chasing pleasures or avoiding discomfort, forgetting to ask what their life is for. For the Stoics, meaning came from directing your energy toward something larger than yourself, whether it was service to your community, dedication to a craft, or the pursuit of wisdom. This larger purpose gave them resilience because it allowed them to see hardship as part of a bigger story rather than a meaningless interruption. Modern psychology echoes this in the concept of meaning-making, the process of finding a narrative that transforms suffering into growth. People who can frame their struggles as part of a purposeful journey tend to recover more quickly and live with greater satisfaction. The Stoics were practicing this centuries ago, deliberately crafting interpretations of events that reinforced their sense of mission. Finding meaning also required clarity about values. The Stoics regularly asked themselves, what kind of person do I want to be? What virtues will I choose no matter the cost? By holding these answers firmly, they could navigate uncertainty without losing their way. When you know what you stand for, decisions become simpler, even if they are not easier. One powerful Stoic exercise for creating meaning is to imagine your own death not morbidly, but as a reminder that time is finite. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on how small a fragment of eternity his own life would be. This thought sharpened his sense of urgency. Why waste a day on trivialities when you could use it to live with honor, help others, or learn something of lasting value? Another key was service. The Stoics did not see themselves as isolated individuals, but as parts of a greater whole. Marcus Aurelius described humanity as limbs of the same body. If one limb suffers, the others must act in harmony to aid it. Service to others was not a burden to them. It was an expression of their nature. And in serving, they often found the deepest meaning because they knew their efforts contributed to something enduring. Even in private reflection, the Stoics sought purpose. Journaling for Marcus was not merely a record of events. It was a dialogue with his higher self, a way of refining his understanding of what life was asking from him. You can adopt this practice each day. Ask yourself, what opportunity for virtue did I have today, and how did I meet it? Over time, your answers will reveal the shape of the life you are building. The greatest gift of this Stoic approach is that it makes every moment usable. No day is wasted if it is lived with intention. Even in illness, you can practice patience. Even in poverty, you can practice generosity. Even in loss, you can practice gratitude for what remains. This does not erase pain, but it ensures that pain does not erase you. Personal reflection. If you are still here, it means you are not content to drift. You want your life to mean something. I have learned that meaning does not arrive with a grand revelation. It is built in small, deliberate acts, repeated daily. I invite you to choose one value, just one, that you will commit to living out this week, no matter what happens. Maybe it is kindness, maybe courage, maybe honesty. Then share your experience in the comments. You might find that when you live for something greater than yourself, even the hardest days carry a quiet light. We have traveled far through the teachings of the Stoics, through the gates of the mind, the discipline of thought, the practice of visualization, the guarding against negativity, the cultivation of willpower, the art of emotional mastery, the power of silence, the building of resilience, and the search for meaning. Now it is time to bring all of this together into one living truth. Your mind shapes your life, and you are the one who shapes your mind. Marcus Aurelius, in his private meditations, returned again and again to this core principle. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, he wrote. It is a reminder that every moment is a brushstroke on the canvas of your character. Every thought you choose, every perspective you adopt, every reaction you allow or refuse, all of it leaves its mark on who you are becoming. You are not simply drifting toward your future. You are building it with every choice of the mind. The Stoics taught us that freedom is not the absence of constraints, but the mastery of the self within them. Life will never remove all obstacles. The road will always hold both smooth stretches and sharp stones. But when you learn to govern your inner world, to filter your thoughts, direct your focus, and anchor yourself in values, those outer obstacles lose their power to control you. You become steady not because the world is steady, but because you are. In this way, Stoicism is not a philosophy of retreat. It is a philosophy of engagement. It does not ask you to hide from life's hardships, but to step into them with eyes open, armed with clarity and courage. The Stoic does not run from storms. He stands within them, knowing that the storm will pass and that his integrity is more important than his comfort. The practices we have explored are not meant to be memorized and left on the shelf. They are meant to be lived. Start small. Guard your mind for one day. Visualize tomorrow's challenges and your responses. Practice a moment of silence before making a decision. Choose one long-term goal and commit to it without rushing the results. Every time you apply one of these tools, you are training your mind to serve you instead of sabotage you. It is worth remembering that even the great Stoics stumbled. Marcus Aurelius admitted to losing his temper. Seneca confessed to moments of weakness. Epictetus acknowledged that the discipline he preached was a lifelong pursuit, not a finished achievement. Perfection was never the goal, progress was. What mattered was returning again and again to the path, no matter how many times they wandered from it. When you live by these principles, you begin to see that the mind is not just a private refuge. It is the command center of your life. Your relationships, your work, your ability to find peace in chaos all flow from the quality of your thinking. Change your thoughts and you change everything they touch. There is a quiet but profound power in realizing that you already have what you need to begin. You do not need perfect conditions, unlimited time, or the approval of others. You need only the decision to take responsibility for your mind, to stand guard at its gates, and to shape it with the thoughts that lead you toward the life you want. This decision can be made in a single moment and renewed in every moment that follows. In the end, the Stoics leave us with this: the mind is the only thing you truly own. It is your greatest ally or your most dangerous enemy. Train it, protect it, and direct it toward what is good, and you will build a life of strength, peace, and meaning, no matter what the world places in your path. Personal reflection. If you have stayed with me through every part of this journey, then you are already walking the path of mastery. I have learned that while the Stoic way is demanding, it is also deeply liberating. The more I practice it, the less I am swayed by the noise of the world, and the more I feel at home within myself. I invite you right now to choose one Stoic practice from everything we have explored and live it for the next 7 days. Share your commitment in the comments. Your words might be the spark that helps someone else begin. And remember, the mind is everything. What you think you become. Make those thoughts worthy of the life you want to live.
If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Write one thing down that you'll start doing this week. 2025 doesn't magically change anything you do, and your future begins the moment you decide to move, even just a little.